Yayoi Kusama. So Yayoi Kusama is a Japanese woman from Japan, and she came to the Americas when she was 27. And she is obsessed with polka dots. Each artist always has something they're a little passionate about, and hers happens to be polka dots. So here is a photo of her at the age of 27 and the age of 95. So Yayoi is still alive. She does live in a home, but she still creates art. She still has exhibitions. She still puts her art in art studios and galleries. Here is Yayoi's painting. She does do paintings, but she does a lot of things that are tangible, so you can touch them. But this is a canvas painting of some mushrooms with polka dots. Here's a picture of her dress with polka dots. Her hat has polka dots, and even the horse has polka dots. She puts polka dots on everything. She puts polka dots on people, on clothing, on walls. Here is something called installation art. So installation art is a fancy word for saying art that is not on a canvas or on a wall. This installation art is a whole room. So the whole room is her art exhibition. You can walk around it, you can touch it. You get to experience being immersed into polka dots. You can see how large that pumpkin is. And that's something we're going to try to do today, is draw some of her pumpkins. This is another example of installation art. She installs it. You go through it. You touch it. You experience it. It's not just a painting on the wall. You can see, it's kind of hard to see, but those are giant flowers. You can see how big everything is compared to the people in the gallery. And there again are more polka dots. This is one of my favorite pieces, and what we are going to try to emulate today. That is a very tiny room, but it looks vast. It looks like these pumpkins go on forever. But that is an illusion with mirrors. And these are lanterns. And we want our pumpkins to glow, kind of like her lanterns. I'm going to show you how to do that with watercolor paper. Or watercolor paint, I mean. This is one of her first installation pieces when she arrived to America in New York. She had a room full of mirrors, and she hand sewed all of these pillows. And the viewers, or the people who came to her art show, were allowed to throw the pillows, sleep on the pillows, just play with all these polka dots. Her herself, she likes to be a part of the installation, especially when she was younger, and she kind of looks like a polka dot. Okay. So we're gonna get started. We are gonna watch a YouTube video when we are gonna have the pumpkins dry, because we're gonna do 2 steps. But let's look at our materials. So let's make sure we all have what we need. You should have water and a brush. You should have a paper towel, a pencil, a Sharpie. We can't use water-based markers like Crayola. We have to use a Sharpie. And we need our watercolor palette. Here are some examples of what we're going to do today. We're going to do 3 pumpkins. And these pumpkins will be overlapping. We've done overlapping shapes before. And I want them to look like they're glowing. So do you see how I'm going to show you a technique as to how to make these pumpkins look more rounded? There's always a pattern with the polka dots. They're not just random. They are thoughtful. And here's one more. Okay, so let's go ahead, and we need to find our sheet of paper. I want you to feel the paper. There is a rough textured side, and there is a smooth side. The back side is going to be the smooth side, and we are going to write our name on the back, and we are also going to do a quick warm-up. So if you can't figure out which side is smooth and which side is rough, that's okay. Just pick one side to be the back. I would recommend the smooth side to be the back because the textured part we're going to use for our watercolor. So I'm just going to put my name, and you should do the same. You can also put the date if you like. Oh, what's the date? No, 18th. Sorry, guys. And we are going to start with warming up our hand, and we're going to do a circle. Go around a few times. Remember, this is the back. This is the warm-up. We're just warming up. You're going to put a dot at the top and a dot at the bottom. The hardest part of this lesson is the fact that we are drawing a pumpkin, which is a gourd. And a gourd has these grooves. They have these bumps. And a lot of students will draw straight lines. And then this is their pumpkin. We are not doing that. That is not what we are doing. We need to do curved lines. So do you see how my curved line comes all the way to each dot? So go ahead, do this line. Please make a curved line. Do another curved line. And then one more curved line. We're going to do the same on the other side. A curved line. Another curved line. And we're going to do one more because we don't want a beach ball. We want a pumpkin. Remember, we are not doing lines that go straight up and down. That is not what we want. We want a more sophisticated, curved sort of line. And that is our warm-up today. That's all we got to do for our warm-up. And we are going to flip over this piece of paper and get started on our final project, our final product. So once you're done with this warm-up, all you are practicing is doing some curved lines. Just practice those. And now we are going to flip it over. And we're going to get started on the real stuff. Give me a thumbs up if you have your paper flipped over. Give me a thumbs up if you have your paper flipped over. I should probably be able to see you guys. Let's see. Okay. Thumbs up if it's flipped over. Thank you, thank you. Okay. I want you to get your fingers, give me a peace sign, put them together. And we're going to go 1, 2, and 3, and put a dot. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. 1, 2, and 3, and a dot. This is going to be our horizon line, So go ahead. Do not draw it super dark. Draw it pretty light. We will be erasing it. I'm going to draw it kind of dark because I want you to be able to see it. You guys can do it a lot lighter. You guys can do it like that light if you like. Now we're going to have a circle pumpkin, oval, and another oval. So let's find the center of our paper, and we're going to roughly do a pumpkin that might be a little smaller or about the size of your hand. Miss C's hand is probably bigger than yours, so mine's going to be slightly smaller than my hand. Yours might be the size of your hand. And I'm just going to go ahead and put a dot, and then put a dot at the bottom. So I have a dot here and a dot here. I'll make them a little bit bigger. All I did was put a dot at the top of my hand and a dot at the bottom of my hand. And my first pumpkin is going to be roughly that size. So just do a rough circle. It does not have to be dark. I'm going pretty dark so you can see. You guys are going to do it nice and light because we will be erasing. Now, is Miss C have a perfect circle? No, because pumpkins are not perfectly round. Gourds grow in all sorts of shapes. If you've ever been to a pumpkin patch, you've probably seen a whole bunch of different shapes. Okay. We've done overlapping shapes before, so we have our first circle. Once you're done with your first circle, give me a thumbs up so we can do our oval. I'll give you a few seconds. Like I said, I just put 2 dots. I don't want our pumpkins really small, so I want them about roughly the same size as your hand. And we're just doing it in the center. Our goal is to have 3 pumpkins. You see how large those are? Right. Thumbs up if you have your circle. Thank you, guys. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do an oval right here. We have to make sure it overlaps. So make sure it overlaps. And an oval, just think of a circle, but kind of smushed. Do you see how it is going inside my first circle? We are going to erase that line because this pumpkin is in front and this one is behind, but we'll do that in a little bit. If you have your oval, give me a thumbs up. Okay, I'm going to give everyone a few more seconds. Alright, give me a thumbs up if you're ready. We're going to do the next oval. We're just going to move on over here. We're going to do the same oval shape, but we are flipping it up, so it will be a tall pumpkin. And it will be overlapping. It will be overlapping. And I like to make my pumpkin sort of bigger on the bottom, so I guess it's more of like an egg shape. So just go ahead and roughly make an egg shape. Because gourds and pumpkins are usually a little heavier at the bottom, therefore I am making an egg shape. I want to make sure everyone has an eraser on their pencil. We do need an eraser. We need to erase this line, and that line, and this line. We got to erase all of those lines so this center pumpkin will be at the forefront, at the very front of our artwork. Fun fact about Miss C, I was in speech in elementary school for like, I guess all 5 years. And I would say bumpkin instead of pumpkin. Don't ask me why. I was a strange kid. But basically, I had to do speech because I couldn't say the word pumpkin. But now look at me. Alright, go ahead and erase those lines. Your line should be a lot lighter than mine. Mine are nice and dark so you can see it. We can also erase that horizon line right here. The reason we had the horizon line in the first place is because we don't want our pumpkins just floating in the middle of the page. The composition always looks better if the bottom of your subject is towards the bottom and not too far in the center, because then our pumpkins would be up here and they'd be a lot smaller. So there is a method to the madness. Even though we are erasing it, it had a purpose. It did have a purpose. And now its purpose is gone. So you can erase it. And if you remember our warm-up was making those curved lines. So you guys should be experts by now. I shouldn't see any straight lines. We should only see curved lines. So let's put a dot at the top of each pumpkin. dot at each pumpkin, a dot at the bottom. We like polka dots here, just like Yayoi Kusama. They are handy dandy tools for artists. You should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 dots. One at the top, one at the bottom. Alright, and I am going to go ahead and start my curved lines. Are you guys all ready? Give me a thumbs up if you are ready. Okay, we are going to start. Make sure your curved line reaches both dots. So we're just going to go on one side. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other because these pumpkins are symmetrical. I like to think of them as like a butterfly or something like that. What you do on one side, you do to the other. And I feel like my pumpkin is looking a little too much like a beach ball. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another curved line, but I'm going to kind of make it a little more flat and a little more heavy at the bottom. So try your best to emulate that. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it. But I am doing that because I want my pumpkin to not be perfectly round. I like to give it a little bit of a shape. In fact, I might even kind of go like this. These are all practice lines because we will go over all of these lines with a Sharpie. And then you can kind of define where you want those lines, okay? Alright. Hopefully your lines are not as dark as Miss C's, but mine are pretty dark, so you can see it. Now I'm going to zoom in for this part. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready for the next pumpkin. Okay, I'm going to give a few more seconds so you get your beach ball vibes going on. I am going to zoom in to this little guy right here. This one. We cannot see a lot of this pumpkin. That doesn't mean there's not a line there, okay guys? So if I do a curved line here, I have to do a curved line here. But I'm just going to pretend and then come back down and connect. Okay guys? So you can even do like a soft pencil and then erase it later. Or you can just kind of guess where it would be. So we do need a line here and a line here. We also need a line right here and a line right here. And then we can go on this side and complete that shape. This is also tricky, same kind of thing. Just because we can't see the line doesn't mean it doesn't continue. It does have to continue. So all I did was make sure that that line came all the way up to the very edge of our first pumpkin. I'm going to do the same thing to this one. So you can just watch Miss C first. So let's just watch me. So if I make a curved line right here, I have to do a curved line on this side. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I'm going to go, stop, continue, like that. So you can even just go all the way through and erase it later. Make those lines a little darker, and that line, and this line, just like that. Make sure you have a curved line. Okay. We have to add stems. So we can go ahead and do that. I'm going to show you how I like to do my stems. I like to put along like some lines at different angles on top. So I have 1, 2, and 3 right above that dot, right above the dot, right above the dot. Maybe about 2 fingers up, around that. Then I like to do kind of like a shape like a triangle or a warped rectangle. I like to curve one out and curve one like that. I'll curve one in this direction and another one like that. And for extra fun, since we are drawing a type of gourd, they have like these little spindly things that grow off of them because they do grow on vines. So we have to respect the vine, and we do have to draw some vines. So what I like to do is kind of come off of where my stem is, and I like to just do kind of like a curlicue. Your curlicue doesn't have to look like mine, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that curlicue. I am going to start at the center. I'm going to come up, come down, do a curlicue, and then do a spiral. If you want to practice that on the back side of your paper, you can. You can also just do a simple curlicue like that. But I like to add curlicues and vines to my pumpkins because they do grow on vines. Something like that. Okay. Our next step will be using a Sharpie. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to get those stems, to get those vines, and those curlicues, and those spirals ready. We have to make sure we have a nice eraser because we will be erasing after we outline everything. Practice your swirls and your curlicues on the back side of your paper if you like. The next thing we will need is a Sharpie. Alright, give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Give me a thumbs up if you have a Sharpie. Okay, when you get your Sharpie, your first thing you must do is take off the cap and put the cap on the back. Are we going to leave the cap on our desk or leave it on the floor? Nope, we put it right on the back because a Sharpie without a cap will be a very sad, very dry Sharpie. We don't want that. We're going to start off by tracing our very first pumpkin. You're just going to come here and you're going to go ahead and trace the line you like. And you're going to come over here, trace the line you like here. You might have a few to choose from. You might want to adjust. My favorite part is adding the polka dots. Ooh, I am so excited. I'm going to come here, go ahead and do that curved line. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. And sometimes for the stem, I like to add a little bit of flare, and I like to do a little bit of a curly Q, and then come down. You don't have to do that. I just like doing that. I'll show you again real fast how I did that curly Q. I just came up right here. When I came up to this section, I went across and I did a curly Q. Kind of like if I'm doing a really fancy question mark. And then I come down. That is how I do my curly Q. I'll do it one more time. I'm going to come up right here, come across. When I come across, I have to do a little curly Q. Like a fancy weird 7, or maybe like a strange 9. And that is how I did my stems. I do have to outline my vines. Sometimes I like to make some vines thicker, so I might even go over this a second time. And just make it a little thicker. That's up to you though. You might want to have your vines kind of skinny. Go ahead and just outline your whole entire piece of art. If you have a little bit of horizon line showing, I don't, but if you did, you can just outline that too with a line. I drew my pumpkins pretty large, so I didn't have that. Make sure you get all this little detail down here. I'm going to move on to this one. Now, it's okay if this line continues here. Don't try to smush your whole pumpkin into the frame. If your pumpkin kind of goes out of the frame, that's okay. It makes it look more realistic anyway. So, Yayoi Kusama's polka dots weren't just random. She put them in specific patterns of size. So, often she would have the polka dots start small and get larger and larger and larger, and then small and small and small again. So we're going to kind of copy that pattern for at least this one. For these ones, you can kind of do your own thing, but let's at least do the center all the same. And the way we're going to do our polka dots is by starting with a spiral. And I want my first polka dot in the middle. I want it as large as my 2 fingers. So this is going to be our largest dot. So I'm going to come here, find about the middle. It might be a little bit above your horizon line. I'm going to put a little dot right here. And what we're going to do is we are going to make a spiral. And once your spiral is big enough and the size you want it, you're going to stop. So I want my dot to be about this big. It's about 2 of my fingers. A little bigger actually, but that's okay. And once you do that spiral, you are going to color it in. We are using Sharpies. Make sure we're using Sharpies and not water-based markers. Has to be Sharpie. We should have something that kind of looks like an eyeball. And then our next 2 dots will be a little smaller. They're going to be our medium size. Think of like drawing a snowman. You have the large, medium, and small, but they are not touching. So you're just going to move up And you're going to put a dot, and we are going to make a medium-sized spiral. So maybe something about that big. And I want to put one down here as well. So I'm going to do another medium-sized spiral. And we have to color those in, so let's color them in. There is a pattern. We are going from large to medium to small. And we have room for about another dot. So we're just going to come here and do a little bit of a smaller dot and a smaller dot. Now the next part is my favorite part of this lesson. We get to draw a dot that's coming off of the page. It's the illusion of a dot making our pumpkins look three-dimensional. So if you notice here, we have these dots, but we can't see the entire dot. We only see a little bit of that dot. So we're going to do the same thing. So if you've got these dots, give me a thumbs up if you got these dots. Okay. I'm going to give you a few more seconds for those who need to catch up. You should have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 dots. I need everyone to get their finger and put it on this dot. And we need to move it over to right here. Put your finger here and move it over. And move it over. And we are going to do a crescent moon shape, just like that. And then I want you to go about 2 fingers up and do another crescent moon. So we took our finger, we came over, we did a crescent. I put 2 fingers down and I did another crescent. Or a half circle, semicircle. Crescent, semicircle. And then I need you to come down here with your 2 fingers and do the same exact thing. We should have 1, we should have 2, we should have 3. 3 semicircles. These circles are not expanding over here. They are not in the center. They are directly on the sides. And then guess what? What we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So we're going to put our finger and we're going to move it over here. And we're going to do a crescent. And anyone tell me the next step? You're going to use 2 fingers. And you're going to do another crescent. And then you're going to use your 2 fingers and do one more crescent. In total, how many do we have? 6. And then you get to color them in, which is actually really satisfying. I love coloring them in. Polka dots are fun. I hope I don't sound like a broken record. I can't remember if I told you guys this story, but when I was in elementary school at Dnipro Sera, I was in speech. And when I did speech, I couldn't say pumpkin. I would say bumpkin. Bumpkin. Don't ask me why. I was a weird kid. But yeah, I took speech for a long time, and now I can say the word pumpkin instead of bumpkin. I'd also say stitcher instead of sister. I don't know why. But yeah, speech was fun. I enjoyed going to speech. There is a reason why Yayoi Kusama would draw polka dots. She felt like it unified people. She felt like she was a part of something polka dots, like we are all polka dots. And we're all connected. So there's kind of like a reason. Alright, you have done your first dots. And now you can continue a pattern on your other pumpkins. What I like to do is do a large one here, medium one, and then a small one. And if we did that, you have to notice that I can't see this entire polka dot. So I'm going to zoom in and show you what I need to do. I can't do the whole polka dot right here, so you can either get a pencil and do it and try to like sample it. Like if you're not trusting yourself, you can grab a pencil and just draw a dot like that. But I'm pretty confident, and I'm just going to draw half a circle. I'm not going inside because now I know that this is where I'm going to color. And then I'm going to do another dot, and it's going to be only about that much shown. And this one, it's going to be hardly anything showing. So that's the pattern I'm choosing for this one. You don't have to do that, but your polka dots do have to have a rhyme and a reason. They can't just be randomly put places. Okay? If you want, you can even add like smaller dots here. Just make sure they are in a pattern. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So if I put small dots on this side, I have to put small dots on this side. And I'm going to give you some artistic freedom, and you can do whatever kind of dots you want on these pumpkins. You can either follow along with me if you want to do exactly what I'm doing, but if you have a cool idea of how you want to put your polka dots, go ahead. But make sure that if they are hidden, you only use half of your polka dots if they're not shown all the way, because our pumpkins are obstructed by other pumpkins. Maybe I'll want to do a polka dot like right here, so therefore I would only do half of one. I won't see any polka dots until I get right about here. And maybe these ones are getting smaller. Something like that. Go ahead, add all your polka dots. Once you're done with all your polka dots, you will have to erase all of your pencil marks, and we're going to get ready for paint. And paint is the next thing we're going to be doing. What do we do after we're done with our polka dots? We erase all of our pencil marks. So if you are done with your polka dots, go ahead and erase any of your pencil marks. Don't forget to put the cap on your Sharpie. We don't want any dry Sharpies. I am erasing all of my pencil marks. Okay. Once you're done with that, erasing and sharpieing, we do have to get ready for our watercolor. So hopefully you all have water. Hopefully you all have the paint. I have my water and my brush. And you need a paper towel. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready for paint. Okay. We are doing a method called wet on wet. I like to call it invisible painting because we don't paint with the paint first. We paint with the water first. I want everyone to get their finger and point at the center of their first pumpkin. We are painting just this section first. So you're going to get your brush with no paint, just water, and we are going to paint as if we had paint, but we're just using the water. We don't need too much water. Do not drown your paper. It will make your paper very weak and prone to holes and rips and tears. So we are just getting it nice and glossy. Do you see how that's nice and glossy? And we're trying to stay inside this shape. We're not going to the left. We're not going to the right. We're not going outside. Just right here in this eyeball almond shape. Okay. We do have to activate our paint. We don't activate our paint by yelling, saying activate. No, no, no. You get some water on your brush and you drip some water. And we need to activate our yellow. We need to activate our orange. And we're just putting a little bit of water in those palettes. We are going to use yellow first. Make sure your brush is nice and clean. And you're going to go ahead and grab some of that yellow. And we are just painting the center. Because Kusama's pumpkins in that one art piece with all the mirrors were lanterns. And I want to show the effect as if our pumpkins are kind of glowing. So we are going to do the light. We're working from light to dark. And this is called wet on wet painting because our paint is wet and our paper is wet. Paper's wet, paint's wet, wet on wet. We do have to clean our brush every time we change colors. So we are done with the yellow. You're going to get your brush in the water and dab it on the paper towel. If your paper towel doesn't look like a tie-dye t-shirt, by the end of the lesson, you are not cleaning your brush enough. I want everyone to just watch Miss C. So all eyes on the screen in 1, all eyes on the screen in 2, and all eyes on the screen in 3. We are watching Miss C. We are going to grab orange. We are not going to put the orange in the center of our pumpkin. We are only putting orange on the sides. So I'm doing one side with orange, dipping my brush, and doing the next side. We're only doing the edges of our pumpkin. And we're going to let those colors mix together. We're going to let them bleed into each other, okay? And then we're going to clean off our brush and do the same exact thing to both sides. We paint with water. We paint with yellow and then orange. So I cleaned off my brush, and now I can go in with painting with water. So you can go ahead and do that with me. Go ahead and grab your water and just paint one section of your pumpkin. It's called wet on wet, so we need to make the paper wet. Not too wet, just enough. And then we're going to grab our yellow and do the same thing. Yellow, then orange. Yellow, then orange. Are we putting the orange in the middle? No siree, we are only putting the orange on the edges. Only on the edges. I'm going to clean off my brush because I'm all done with my yellow. I'm going to wipe my brush off on the paper towel. And I'm going to come to orange. I'm doing orange on the inside side and the outside edge too. And that's going to give the cool effect as our pumpkins are glowing as if there's a light inside. What you do to one side, you do to the other. You paint with water first, wet on wet. I think you guys got the idea. So go ahead, go for it. Less is more with the water. You do not have to drown your paper. I am switching colors, so I do have to clean my brush because I am switching colors. Look at all that yellow that's coming off. Hopefully your paper towel is kind of looking like a tie-dye t-shirt because you are washing your brush. We are going to paint the other two pumpkins different colors. We are going to let the pumpkins dry, and then we will do the background. I'm going to play a video on Yayoi Kusama, but we do need the pumpkins to dry. And I'm going to show you a method for doing the pumpkin that kind of looks like a purple pumpkin. There is a method, we're using a different method for these two pumpkins. This was wet on wet. These guys were doing something a little different. So, no matter where you are on painting your pumpkin, I need everyone's eyes and brushes down. So put your brush away, and I just want you to watch Miss C. Can we all watch Miss C? So you're going to put your brush away, and you're just going to watch Miss C. It's not going to take that long, okay, guys? Your first step is picking a color. I want purple, so I'm going to choose purple. I'm going to activate purple. So I'm going to put a little drops in there, mix it around. We're doing dry method, so my pumpkin is dry, and I am only going to paint the outside of my pumpkin. So I'm getting my purple paint, and I'm following just the edges like this. And a little here, and a little here. Now, you're going to wash off your brush. I'm washing off my brush. After you have your brush washed off, you're just going to add plain old water to the sides and let that water drip into the center of your pumpkin. Are you adding more paint? No siree. You are only adding water and you're letting that color fade into the pumpkin. It's that simple. This is not wet on wet, this is dry. It's called dry painting. And that's how you get that effect, okay? I'm going to show you one more time and then I'll let you go back to painting. Are you guys ready? I'm going to make this one green. I'm going to activate my green. We should all be watching. All of our paintbrushes are in the cup of water. All eyeballs are on the screen. Our pumpkin is dry. You're going to go ahead and you are going to outline with the paint your pumpkin. You're just outlining it. Am I coloring it in the middle? Nope. Just the outline. And the next step after that is what? We are going to add water. So I'm going to clean off my brush. My brush has just water. And we're just going to paint the water in the middle. And it's going to allow that paint to kind of meld into the middle. Just like that. And that's how we're going to get the effect of a 3D pumpkin. So go ahead. You can pick up your brush. Continue where you were. Remember what I showed you. We are just adding water to the edge and bringing that paint towards the center. You don't have to make your pumpkins green and purple. You can pick a different color. Another fun thing is you can also add colors once your pumpkin is wet like that. So if I wanted to add a little bit of yellow, I can. Just like that. Just for fun. Okay. That is your two methods, wet on wet and dry. They make different kind of things. So keep painting. I am going to show a video. The video is about 4 minutes long. And then our pumpkins should be pretty dry and we can do the background. So continue painting. I'm going to play a video. I didn't have any issues with the audio this week, but if there is an issue, let me know.
When Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama first moved to New York City, she stood at the top of the Empire State Building and made a promise to herself. She would become world famous for her paintings, her sculptures, and her extraordinary creative energy. She was thousands of miles away from home, and she finally felt free. Yayoi was born in Matsumoto, a city in Japan surrounded by mountains and nature. Her parents owned a seed nursery which grew flowers to sell across the country. Yayoi would sit in the flower beds with her sketchbook and get lost in her imagination. She knew, even when she was very young, that she wanted to be an artist. But her parents were against the idea. At the time, most artists in Japan were men. Yayoi's mum wanted Yayoi to become a housewife. They got into terrible fights. But Yayoi was rebellious and unstoppable. When her mum snatched away her canvases, she used old sacks instead. One day, Yayoi was sitting in the flower beds when all the flowers seemed to come to life. Their heads were like dots that went on as far as she could see. She felt as if she was being obliterated or breaking into little pieces and disappearing into a field of endless dots. After Yayoi got home, she sketched lots and lots of the never-ending fields of flowers and what she'd seen in the field. Drawing helped her to feel calmer and more in control. She could break herself into dots or self-obliterate and become one with her surroundings. She also used dots to connect with other people, like in this drawing of her mum. A few years later, Yayoi saw the work of a famous and much older artist called Georgia O'Keeffe, who lived across the world in America. She decided to send Georgia a letter and some watercolour paintings she'd made. To her surprise, Georgia replied and even said she showed the watercolours to her art dealer. The letter was the start of a new adventure. Yayoi would later write, "If Georgia had not answered my letter, I'm not sure I would ever have made it to America. It was because of her that I was able to go to the USA and begin my artist career in earnest." When Yayoi was 27 years old, she packed 2,000 drawings into her suitcase and got on a plane. Away from her parents, she could paint from morning to night. She worked on giant canvases and became known for putting dots on walls, on clothes, on people, even on a horse. Yayoi found lots of fans who wanted her to paint dots on their bodies so they could become a part of her artworks. She finally met Georgia O'Keeffe in person and made friends with other famous American artists, including Andy Warhol, Joseph Cornell, and Donald Judd. But like in Japan, most of the artists in New York were men. Yayoi had to work extra hard to stand out, and sometimes this would leave her feeling exhausted and anxious. But making art was a safe space for her, where she could feel at peace. Now in her 90s, Yayoi is famous around the world for her work, just like she promised herself that day at the Empire State Building. She sees herself as a single dot, and everyone in the world is a dot, connected to another dot. Our Earth is like one little polka dot among millions of other celestial bodies, she once wrote. Let's forget ourselves and become one with the universe. When do you feel most connected with the world? And what would that look like in a drawing?
Okay, so that's some cool history about Yayoi, and now we are going to paint our background, and we're not going to do wet on wet, we're doing the dry method like we did with the two other pumpkins. And we're going to do the background, we're going to do the floor a blue, and the sky is going to be like an orangey kind of yellow. So we're going to start with the bottom, and we're going to start with blue. So let's go ahead and activate your blue. You put a little bit of water inside and you mix it around. And we are not going to paint with water first because we don't want our paint to smear into our pumpkins. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. We are going to start here with our blue. You notice I'm not starting right next to the pumpkin. I'm not starting right here. Nope. I'm going to gently move my paint towards the pumpkin. So I'm starting kind of far away. I am going to grab a little bit of water and I'm kind of edging it up towards the pumpkin, okay? Because if we get too much water too close to the pumpkin, then we're going to have a lot of bleeding, and we don't want the colors to bleed too much. So that's what happens when you add too much water too close. And if that happens, don't freak out. All you have to do is grab a paper towel and you dab it. and you lift up. And then maybe you dab it one more time and lift up, and you are okay. But that's why we are starting kind of far away from the pumpkin. Starting kind of far away. And then we are edging up closer. And then we're edging up closer. So go ahead and start painting. We just need the floor to be blue. And then we're done. And we're going to go on to the next color. I know we are running out of time, so I understand if some of you need to log off and leave. But this shouldn't take too long, honestly. We just have to color in 2 more things, and then we're done. I always like showing that video, and it gives the pumpkins some time to dry, so we don't get too much bleeding into the background. When I say bleeding, it's nothing bad. It's just a word for letting the water expand and mix the paint. It's an art term. No one's actually bleeding. Okay. What I like to do also is add some shadow. So I like to get a little bit of purple. Not too much purple, but a little bit. And then I kind of like to do a shadow right underneath the pumpkins. So once you're done with your blue, you're just going to add a little stripe of purple at the bottom of each pumpkin. Just a little stripe. Nothing too fancy. And this gives more dimension to our drawing. I'm going to give you a few seconds to do that, and then I'll show you how we're going to do the sky. Now, I like to keep the stems white, but you don't have to. If you want your stems to be brown or green, you can go ahead and do that. I personally just like them the white of the paper because it kind of gives it some, I don't know, character. Because it's nice to leave some of the paper sometimes. Because that's the only way we get white in watercolor. We don't have white paint for watercolor. Okay, so what we're going to do is the dry method again. I'm going to start with yellow. And I am just going to get my yellow nice and wet. And kind of dab yellow here. Dab some yellow here. Oh, I forgot to clean my brush. That's why my yellow is kind of dirty. Oops. Remember to clean your brush before you get to the yellow. And I'm just adding yellow randomly, kind of like little yellow clouds. I'm going to add some yellow clouds right here, some little yellow clouds right here. I am not adding the yellow clouds onto the stems. I'm just kind of adding them around the pumpkins. And I'm going to kind of spread them out a little bit. You can add a little bit of water to your brush, spread out those clouds. I made clouds, now I'm adding water to my clouds. And I'm also going to, now that my paper is nice and wet, I'm going to grab some orange. I'm going to do some little blobs of orange, some little orange blobs, little orange clouds. Kind of like if it was a sunset. You don't need too much orange, just enough to where you're happy. You get to be the judge of how much orange you want in the sky. And after that, you are all done. And you have completed your artwork. I'm going to